What is happening, TWT fans? It is so good to be back on this March 27th, 2025. And as always, I am so happy to be alive. This is episode 260. Well, I'm going to start off this way. Now, there is this new app, everybody. It is called the YUKA App. This YUKA app that I just downloaded to my phone allows you to scan packages, scan food, scan anything you want, and it will give you a 0 out of 100. 100 means that it's healthy for you, and anything over 50% is much better. But I think we all need to start using this YUKA app. So it allows you to start product and analyst. So YUKA scans products and accesses their health benefits, letting you know if they're good or bad. YUKA recommends healthier alternatives. So if you scan something and it's bad, it will give you an alternative that you could eat instead of that. So I can just go in and I can scan something. Tell it while I'm using the app. And now if I had some food here, I'm going to be right back, everybody. I have here things that I actually eat on a regular basis. I have some Santa Cruz peanut butter. I have some turmeric made by Nutrilio. I love these little candy M&Ms. Get them at Trader Joe's. Way better than actual M&Ms. And then these are some of the gummies that I've been using when I got sick because it has zinc in it. And I don't think we all have enough zinc in our system. So zinc actually makes me feel sick every time I take it. I don't know what that's about. I've taken it with food, without food, but it always makes me feel a little weird for a couple minutes. But let's scan this, okay, by using this YUKA app. You just hold the bottle in front of it. Sambiscus, YUKA does not rate dietary supplements. Interesting. Well, I did not know that was going to happen. You can't do supplements, everybody. But let's see what it says about my peanuts. Because I really like my peanuts. All right. Oh, this is bad. This is bad, everybody. Okay, milk, chocolate, dipped peanuts from Trader Joe's is considered bad. Can you see it? It says bad. 12 out of 100, everybody. Okay, so this is probably one of the worst things that I eat. Go scan some M&Ms, and you will see that that is even worse. I think they get a 5 out of 100. All right. Oh, man, I don't even want to scan my Santa Cruz. Come on, Santa Cruz. Let's see what it says. I think you actually have to scan the UPC. Okay, so creamy, dark roasted peanut butter Santa Cruz organic, 94 out of 100. So this YUKA app, everybody. Let me see if I can get that in there for you. There you go. You see it? So this YUKA app, everybody, really allows you to see what is actually good for you, what you're actually buying and putting into your body is actually healthy, and it is going to eliminate all the guesswork because we don't have a way to put this on our food yet. And I think this is going to be something that is going to happen over time. This YUKA app, everybody, get it. Scan your food. See what you're putting into your body. And I am telling you right now, you can afford to eat healthy out there. I know it's more expensive, but you got to get rid of the fun. You got to get rid of the unnecessary. And it's okay to go to a concert every now and then. It's okay to go skiing. It's okay to go do certain things. But when you prioritize those things instead of what you're putting into your body, do those things really matter? because you're not going to feel that great with everything that you're putting into your body. So you got to put healthy things into your body. You need to be active and you need to be responsible. And today, I'm really surprised that this message is lost, because with so many people not being able to afford housing, you would think that they would eliminate the fun so that you can have a healthier diet and a roof over your head. You have to make sacrifices as we get older, and it usually means less fun. It really does, everybody. But I wanted everybody to kind of get an idea of things that you can do out there to better your life, make yourself healthier, and eliminate, for the most part, not all of them, but over time, I do believe with all of these practices, you can eliminate medications. These medications are not meant to be on for a long time. They change the system, they change the body, they change the way everything works inside of us. And I do believe over a long period of time, including everything that I've done, it hurts us. And it takes a long time to rebuild that. And we have to learn how to live with all of our emotions on our own again. Because these drugs are just masking the symptoms so that we don't have to really focus on them. And for that reason, I believe it's not the right way of doing things, and it is the unhealthy way of living life. So let's get into some Topher's topics now. All right, I got some crazy wild stuff going on. China UB Tech achieves world's first multi-humanoid robot coordination feat. So they have BrainNet links cloud devices, nodes, creating a super brain and a sub-brain to enable advanced humanoid robot collaboration. So they have actually got the AI to communicate with, I think it's like over 100 robots, and now they all work in unison. They all work together. They're all being, they're all doing the next step. So if one of them is installing a bolt, the next one is installing this, and so on and so forth. So they've actually claimed a breakthrough in multi-humanoid robot collaboration. So these things are really going to be able to do all of our jobs. I mean, you can see right here that there's a picture of all the robots doing the things right the first time. I mean, without human error, it is very plausible to eliminate us. So let's watch this video. This is crazy, dude. Wow. Wow. Large payloads. This is crazy. Multi-robot collaboration, intelligent hybrid decision-making, sorting. Wow. Taxidermist. Manipulation of objects. This is wild, everybody. If you're not watching this, these robots are building these cars. I've seen 2 humans so far. Production line, task-driven, smart intelligence of humanoid robots. Wow, dude. That's crazy. Oh, what's it doing? Going to sleep? Oh. No way. This is going to be a wacky world. Look, the robot powered down. It forgot to plug itself in. The other robot walks up and goes, oh, let me help you. And plugs it in and gets it going. These things are doing, this all on their own with AI, with the way they've been programmed. And it is absolutely insane. And there are multiple warehouses now. I do believe, let me see, I'm probably going to get this wrong and my manager is going to yell at me, but I do believe Toyo has a completely unmanned facility building their tires. I want to say it's in, I can't remember if it's Georgia or if it's in Japan. But where the Toyo tires are made is a 100% all machine-made tires. There is no man involved in the making of their tires. They actually have AI designing their tire treads, which is really, really crazy. But going back to China and what they're doing right now, check this out, because they're unveiling their new drone swarm technology. Now, what are they doing this for? And why do we need a swarm of drones? But here it is, everybody. Look at this. Why do we need swarms of drones, bro? What are we doing? Look at this. This is wild, everybody. It's so crazy to me. Look at them all. They look like a swarm of bees. Look at that. I mean, what are they going to be capable of doing besides these patterns and bright lights? Right? What if these all had weapons attached to them? I don't even think the Iron Dome would fight that. You have over, 500,000 drones there? And they make like a swarm. It's crazy. It's absolutely wild. But what if those were weaponized? Who's going to be able to keep all that out? I don't think there's anybody that can fight that. You send 500,000 drones and 100,000 make it through with weapons? Dude, you got a problem. There's no avoiding this. We're not going to have to really do like man-to-man combat anymore. I don't even think we're really doing it today. I think we're barely doing it. I think most of the people that have died in the wars have died from drone attacks, robots, and other things, right? Not really getting down on the ground and shooting each other anymore. I'm sure there's still some battles, but I don't think they're anywhere near what they used to be. I think we rely on our technology and these robots and drones and stuff like that now more than ever. So I believe that even warfare today is so much different than it once was. But man, that's scary to think about. 500,000 drones coming in from China, and you can only take out 400,000, hopefully. Now you have 100,000 that got to attack. I mean, this is what we need to be thinking about. But we also need to be thinking about this, because the Trump's border Caesar says he won't hesitate to use U.S. troops at the border if the cartel attacks, because we are shutting down the borders where the cartel is making all of their money, right? They're making all their money pushing this fentanyl into our country, killing our citizens, and they don't care. They're making a killing off of it. So we've all seen the cartel fight the Mexican government, I believe. And of course, they won, right? Well, I think these guys are so inflated and like they think they're unstoppable, right? So as we start shutting down our borders, this is what this guy has to say about it.
So let me ask you about the cartels. They've made a clear warning to you and to the United States that, we're going to escalate our violence. So now we're seeing not only Mexican troops after this deal that Trump made with Mexico's president, and also U.S. troops headed to the border. How are you going to utilize the military? We know what the military can and can't do domestically, but in a scenario like this, how do you plan on using the military? Could they get involved in the violence if the cartels strike?
Yes, and we expect them to. But the Mexican military, President Trump's able to get Mexico, put military on their northern border. That will certainly help. I think the cartels would be foolish to take on the military, but we know they've taken on the Mexican military before. But now we have the United States military on the border. We got the men and women of the Border Patrol. Do I expect violence to escalate? Absolutely, because the cartels are making record amounts of money. They're making record amounts of money in alien smuggling and trafficking of women and children and drugs. However, as we secure the border, which we've gone long ways to securing the border, crossings are down like 76%. We're taking money out of their pocket. They're not going to wait quietly, and that's why President Trump designated them terrorist organizations. I would send a warning to them. You heard a Border Patrol agent, you heard a soldier. The wrath of President Trump's going to come down.
Does that mean the military, our troops, U.S. military, at the border with weapons, using weapons if need be?
They need to protect themselves. But the cartels, again, let me give the cartels a warning. If you harm a Border Patrol agent or a soldier, the whole world's going to come down to you. President Trump is a strong president. He is strong enough, and he has the ability to wipe them off the face of the earth.
Yep.
Now, that's the reason they were called terrorist organizations, designated terrorist organizations, because they've killed more Americans with their fentanyl, their drugs, than any terrorist organization in the world. They are now designated terrorists. Do not harm our troops, or President Trump will bring hell rain down, and he has the ability to wipe them off the face of the earth. They can claim they're a pretty tough organization, the cartels, and they are, but they're not stronger than the power of President Trump.
I believe that 100%. I've said this 100 times, when people tell me that, like, they're prepping, right? They're making sure that they can live off the grid and they can protect themselves and this and that. The one thing I always go back to is you're not capable of taking out the government. You can't stop them. Our military and our Air Force and our Marines and our Navy and everything that we have is more powerful than anybody on this patch of dirt. So you can prep as much as you want, but you will never be able to stop them. So why would the cartels be able to stop us, right? They were capable of fighting and keeping back the Mexican military, the Mexican government, the Mexican police, right, in Mexico. They were capable of doing that. They have more firepower than their country's military and strength. But this cartel is, what is it? Their head is so big that I do believe that they will think that they can, and they're going to try maybe at some point to use force to get what they want, and they're going to be very sorry that they did. So, has anybody heard of Aether Energy? This is the first time I've heard about it because it was suppressed. It was abolished. It was deemed illegal to talk about. And it's very interesting to me because I've never heard of it before. And again, I want to thank Magella, Elijah, and Hugh for sending me these videos. I try to use something from everybody, but you guys bombard me with these things, and it is overwhelming sometimes to go through the videos. So I don't know exactly who sent what videos, and for that I apologize, but this stuff is wild, man. Again, turning the narrative into something that they want is the objective to almost everything that I talk about. There was a way to make free power, and when we went to E = MC², and we changed it eliminated this thing that we were working on, deemed it illegal, but yet it is always the same truth in a sense, is that it was suppressed because they don't make any money from it. So I want to play this because I find this to be extremely interesting, that this is even something that could have been.
Precisely in 1905 that a deliberate destruction of the ether theory began in the scientific community as a result of a secret conspiracy among global industrialists and magnates. A series of figures were urgently put forward to the prestigious
I want to watch this
scientific
movie.
Olympus of worldwide significance. They were then promoted all over the world, and in turn, they started replacing the concept of the ether and diverting physics into a completely different direction of research. Publishing his works on the topical issues of the time, Einstein began to expound on the theory of relativity. Skillfully, he managed to steer the scientific worldview in another direction. His patrons promptly popularized and presented his works as independent theories. In these scientific works, the notion of the ether was completely abolished due to lack of necessity. An upheaval began to take place in the scientific world. Scientists were cleverly pitted against each other, preventing them from reaching a common opinion. And in 1920, during the Congress of the Union of German Natural Scientists and Physicians held in Germany, the concept of ether was officially abolished in science. All these facts point to a sabotage in science, obstructing the discovery of free and no-cost ether energy for all of humanity.
It's crazy. Now they're showing a chart, yet some Western scholars still refer to Medevos's supposed monologue, the Tartarian, or simply Asian ancestry as fact. Look, this Tartarian thing keeps popping up over and over again. It's very interesting to me because if there is a lost civilization that has already designed most of this stuff, like the thing with the blimps, blimps being able to park on these towers, and they parked and they gave energy. There was, the Hindenburg was blown up so that the blimps would fail and they'd be deemed unsafe because we were coming out with planes, which were less beneficial to us, but more beneficial to them. The blimps were already doing their job. They were a great way of transportation, but they were eliminated because of the planes. They were deemed unsafe. I don't believe that the Hindenburg actually blew up. I believe it was blown up to fit their narrative so that they could say, all right, well, this is very unsafe now, so we should be doing this. It's the same story, but it's just a different product. And if there was an energy that could have benefited us all, and everything shifted into physics, right? Like gravity. Gravity is unmeasurable. Well, it would be super measurable if it was considered a magnetic pull. You could actually figure it out because of the magnetic pull that our planet has. So if you measure it as a magnet and not this unmeasurable thing, it actually makes more sense. So I found it to be very interesting that these things keep happening, and this Tartarian civilization keeps coming back up. It's so interesting to me. Why are we suppressing this? Why are we not talking about it more? So in 1962, I met a Black Ops CIA guy who said the strangest thing he'd ever done was dropping poison ticks off Cuban sugarcane workers. We can kill 10,000 people at $1.33 per life. Now, I've always thought that ticks, the Lyme disease, was something that was designed as warfare. They were a weapon. That's where Lyme disease came from, everybody. That's how it was brought about. And this is actually somebody talking about the fact that they talked to somebody in the CIA back in 1962, and this is what they said.
Walk away and get on with my life. But then two things happened within the space of a month, and I said, I can't let this story go. I just have to know what is really going on with this disease. And one was I met a CIA Black Ops guy who said in 1962, the weirdest thing he'd ever done in his whole crazy apocalypse now career was dropping poison ticks on Cuban sugarcane workers. That was Operation Mongoose. So that was the first evidence that we had dropped ticks on a foreign country as a bioweapon. And then the other thing is one of my filmmaker friends went out to Willy Birdorfer, and in a very long interview, at the very end, he said, yeah, when I investigated the Lyme disease sickness in the late 70s, early 80s, there was another organism there. It wasn't just Lyme that was making people sick. It was, and I was told to cover it up. It was probably a rickettsia. He didn't release all the information, but what he said was confirmed by copies of his lab books and subsequent interviews that I had with him.
Pardon my ignorance, what is the disease you described, the other one? Rickettsia?
So it's a rickettsia. It is the same organism that causes Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and that's the most deadly tick-borne disease in the United States. It also was a germ that was being weaponized by the U.S. military at the time, and they tried to stuff it in ticks. So what is tick weaponization? So in the interviews with Willie, what he said was, I spent over a decade in the biological weapons program, a contractor to Fort Detrick, working on weaponizing fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes, trying to mass produce them, stuffing fleas with the plague, stuffing mosquitoes with deadly Trinidad virus, and then stuffing ticks with either deadly or incapacitating diseases like relapsing fever, Venezuelan equine encephalitis, rabies, leptospirosis, which is another spirochete. So it's just like Dr. Strangelove trying to make new diseases, mixing bacteria and virus in ticks with the intent of, this is the perfect stealth weapon. It's poor man's nuke. You drop these insects on an enemy, it weakens the population, it ties up the medical resources, but doesn't destroy infrastructure like a nuclear bomb would. And in one report from a bean counter in the military, they said, tularemia, which is tick-borne tularemia, also rabbit fever, we can kill 10,000 people at $1.33 a life. So anyways, it was just, there was more to tick-borne diseases than we realized, and I began suspecting that Willie was right, given this context.
That is wild. That is absolutely wild, because I have thought that the ticks and the diseases and Lyme disease, you've heard of it being a weapon more than once, and definitely not just from me. So this is so scary because we're still doing this today. I think half of the diseases in ticks today, ticks, mosquitoes, triple E, all of this stuff, I believe it was designed to be this way to thin out the population. And our government was not using this just only on the enemies, because there are people that want to thin out the population that live in this country still today. One of them owns more farmland than anybody and has been caught on film more than once saying how he wants to depopulate the population. He wants to thin it out. Less people and more control. It's so disgusting, and you're like, man, is this real? And it is. It is real. Let's see here. 100% MS patients showed parasites in their brain and spinal cord. What is this?
They have us intentionally injected with poisons and toxins that will create diseases that are are known by names that make you think that they are like some kind of entity in and of themselves versus just simply an exposure to a toxin, and then you're running after this impossible maze, and that's the whole thing really that we're helping people step out of. And I really appreciate you being here, Lee.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
There's a couple of really interesting things I think we'll dive into here in a second, but why don't you share some of that?
Well, yeah, I always tell people I used to be a standard orthopedic and spinal surgeon, and now I'm a professional medical rebel. That's my website. Because you can't look at this and not realize we're being had. You know, what you call smoke and mirrors, I've come to believe now, is we're in a matrix. And it's a matrix of lies that are internally consistent, because these things sound good, but in honesty, what they are is, as you just said, we have lots of labels. We went just not too long ago, we went from an ICD-9, that's the diagnostic code book that we use in medicine for the government medicine programs. We had 7,000, I think, diagnoses, or maybe 4,000, and now we have 70,000. So we make it sound in organized medicine that because we can label something, we really understand it. And one of my favorite examples is multiple sclerosis. You know, we claim that, and I'm a spine surgeon. For all my life, I did neurology evaluations. And we'd have somebody come in and they thought that it was their back or their neck, and I'd examine them and see them and think, no, that's not what's going on. Let's get, this may be something else, thinking about multiple sclerosis or MS. So I would get an MRI of the brain and the spinal cord, and it would come back with a reading and I'd look at it too, but it would come back as a reading from the radiologist. Oh, there are plaques in the brain and the spinal cord, and that means MS. So what is MS? They never take it the next step, and what causes it? Well, finally, we have a really good pathologist, Dr. McDonald, down, I think it's in Florida, who actually did very careful sectioning of the brain and spinal cord and found out that 100% of the dead MS patients he had autopsied had parasites in their brain and spinal cord. Some of it was actually grossly visible to the naked eye.
Whoa.
So we just accepted, over my whole 45 years in medicine, we accepted that the smart people at the universities were paying attention to this stuff.
That is wild. What? So they never looked into why MS was causing this plaque buildup, and then they find out 45 years later that it's some type of a parasite. So is MS somewhat curable if you start really digging into what is causing it? I mean, that would be amazing if by looking at it through a different lens, you were capable of actually defeating MS. Think of how many people get MS and they perish because there's no way to cure it. But if it is a parasite, then there's a target to attack, and hopefully maybe turn that around. So on this one here, you can't make this up. China's Wuhan Institute of Virology discovers yet another coronavirus capable of human transmission. Just when you thought the world had learned its lesson from COVID-19 catastrophe, Chinese scientists have been busy in their labs again, studying yet another bat coronavirus capable of infecting humans. And guess who's leading the charge? None other than Shi Zhengli, the infamous Batwoman of Wuhan Institute of Virology, the same institution at the center of the lab leak theory that global elites have tried to bury. Dude, if they're working on another one, there's no stopping this. We're all doomed. We're all doomed. We're all going to get very sick. This, I really do believe, is happening right now. I think that they are literally trying to depopulate the world, and they're going to do it by any means necessary, and we can't stop these people from the only way to stop these people is to completely blow up the labs. Blow up the labs, burn every virus in them. I mean, think about the viruses and or things that are underneath the ice cap right now that we don't even know what they are, right? And if they were to get released by the ice cap melting, we wouldn't know what to do because we've never encountered these bacterias and or viruses ever in our lives. And I think, you know, where we keep our seeds and this and that, if something was to go wrong, and we're also holding on to all these viruses like they're playing cards in a sense, I think is crazy. Should we understand these viruses? Should we look into them? Maybe, but maybe it's best that these viruses die as we eradicate them. And instead of holding on to any piece of them to study to see what we can manipulate or change or whatever, weaponize, seems to be the go-to. I think this all needs to come to a stop. I think it needs to come to a stop. We should eliminate all of these viruses so that we don't have to combat them. But instead, we want to try and combat them, and therefore, when we make an oopsie, we all suffer the consequences. I mean, go back 5 years ago, you know? And it's crazy to me that they want to continue down this path of wanting to understand these viruses. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You want to know what else doesn't make any sense to me? How are all these people still alive? Look at this. This is crazy. Now, do I believe there's twins? Do I believe that there's a way for these people to not have died on this and they're still alive? Is it possible that every single one of these people had a sibling that looks identical to them? A twin? I don't know. Check it out.
This is Judy Resnick, an engineer and pilot aboard the Challenger mission. An internet user found Judith Resnick, a law professor at Harvard Law School. Some people were a little taken aback by the identical name, age, and like this is Michael J. Smith, also an engineer and pilot aboard the Challenger shuttle. This is Dr. Michael J. Smith, professor of engineering at the University of Wisconsin. This is Sharon Krista McCullough, arguably one of the most famous things about the Challenger mission. She was supposedly just a teacher that was picked at random. This is Sharon Payne McCullough, also a law professor who received her degree shortly after the Challenger disaster. Dick Scobie was the commander of the mission. Here's Commander Dick Scobie next to Richard Scobie, the CEO of Cows and Trees. Here's his company's original logo. Ronald McNair and Ellison Onizuka both passed away when the Challenger shuttle exploded. Miraculously, it was found out that they both had twin brothers.
All of these people on the Challenger have twins. And yet everything about each one of them is still a continuation of what they were doing before they died. It's too much of a coincidence for me. I don't believe in coincidences. Like I said, this space stuff is interesting. You know, why was the Challenger blown up? Why do these people semi still exist? Why is this such a big cover up? Like, what is the point of all of this? What is the point if they are still alive? Like, why are we covering it up? And why do all of these places that no longer had any bird flu or symptoms, why is it all of a sudden now these animals are being poisoned and killed? Is it just something that they are trying to fit into the narrative? Are they making this happen? Are they causing this to shorten our food supply to make it so that we have to buy shitty food? I don't know, but this video really shook me to the core. 400 healthy ostriches must be eradicated, says Canadian Food Inspection Agency. On January 24th, 4 Canadian Food Inspector Agency's agents arrived in a Universal ostrich farm for a protocol check. During the inspection, the farm owners pleaded with the agents, explaining that their ostriches were healthy and thriving, only to be told that the birds were sick and must be exterminated. What are we even talking about, dude? This is crazy.
We keep sending videos of, look at how healthy and happy these birds are. How can you literally come kill them? You can, I don't get it. That kind of is the issue, I think, with CFIA, is what you're doing is you keep culling these animals that have built an immunity, and then you depopulate them, but then you repopulate with weaker genetics.
Yep.
And it doesn't make sense. When do we stop this madness? And when do we say, look at, here's healthy animals. This entire side, we've not had one bird sick on this entire side.
We're in a stamping out, and it's eradication. It's not a control.
For commercial poultry.
What you're
We're
talking
red meat.
between eradication and control. You're arguing for control, whereas we're not there yet. Eradication is the path that Canada has chosen to deal with high-path avian influenza.
Okay, and when this happens right now, and I keep saying this to CFIA, what about the ducks that are here? What are you doing about the ducks? They brought it to us.
Different. Yes, I know. That's why biosecurity is really important.
We're offering to work with the ducks. We're saying, hey, why don't we all adopt this idea and start working at how to mitigate the problem instead of keep calling all these farms? This is wrong. And when you have, this is not your usual little poultry chicken farm. As you can see, these are ostrich. I don't even know how you can look, these guys, these healthy birds, and you can clearly point out one bird that you see that looks sick here today, please. Because I'd like to see, there is no sick birds here. And you're gonna actually have somebody come in and murder them?
Okay, let's start with your disposal pile.
CFIA Inspection Day, Universal Ostrich Farm, Friday, January 24th, 2025. This is absolutely disturbing. It's so disturbing. Is this what we're actually doing? We're just saying that these animals are sick and we're eradicating them? I mean, this is Canada, so it's not all us. But at the end of the day, if the birds are healthy and they have no signs of being sick, how are you capable of going in there and murdering these birds? And then what? You're like, okay, we murdered 100 ostriches. We're going to bring you 100 new ostriches. And now it's a weaker species, worse meat, a worse something to consume. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Why are they doing this? They're going into farms and they're eradicating this stuff because they say that they're fighting influenza. If the birds aren't sick, I thought this was bird flu, right? So bird flu, I thought was chickens mostly. But these birds look super healthy. They're running around. They're not sick. They're not doing anything. And then these people are directed to go to these farms and kill their livestock, which is absolutely disturbing. Healthy animals, because they say that they're sick. Well, I want you to pull a blood sample. Test the blood sample in front of me. Do it to all the birds. Well, I'll sit here until one of those blood tests pop positive. But until they pop positive, you have no right to be on my fucking farm. You know what I mean? So this is going to get really far out there. I don't know anything about this, but this sounds crazy to me. Soylent Green. Supposedly, we're liquefying the dead. Now, this sounds insane to me. But at the end of the day, everything that sounds insane to me really gets me thinking, because maybe it's not that crazy. Maybe this is happening. Who knows? But I like to point it out because it blew my mind. And if this is real, ugh. All right. Listen, it's wild, everybody. Again, this is for entertainment purposes only.
LifeSite News covered this. It's Wisconsin has joined 20 other states in legalizing the liquefying of dead humans and flushing them down the municipal sewer system. And if you know from my research in the past, those then liquefied dead humans, many of whom died from the vaccine, of course, are being turned into biosludge and then spread on the crops as a form of fertilizer. So we have entered the realm now in 2021. This is not an exaggeration. It's all confirmed, double vetted, verified, that people killed by vaccines are dissolved into liquid, flushed down the drain, concentrated into biosludge, and spread on the food crops. Owen, this is like the Matrix. They are feeding the dead to the living. It's all 100% confirmed, and it's happening now in 2021.
This is just unbelievable. A new angle to where the world is going.
What? Wait a minute. Hold on. Stop. First of all, are you not entertained yet? Second of all, excuse me? You are spraying human remains all over the crops to fertilize the crops. Jesus Christ, man. If this is even remotely close to the truth, now you take these people and now we liquefy them, which I don't want to know how we do that. And then we spray this all over the crops to fertilize the soil. Isn't all of that poison now going into our food? Well, I would have to say yes. Because if that was an unhealthy person in the first place, then all of them is not a good fertilizer for the food that we are going to consume. Now, do I believe that people are being liquefied and being used as fertilizer? Kind of. I wouldn't put it past them. So are we going to be consuming poisonous food that was fertilized by poisoned people? My God, everybody, if this is even remotely true, this is so absolutely disturbing. But if it starts at the actual growth of the food, there's no app that's going to be able to tell me that. So they're going to be able to poison us without us even knowing it. Because if they're, let's just say it's an orange farm that they're fertilizing this dirt with. Well, if I scan that with the YUKA app, it's still going to tell me an orange is 100 out of 100. But what's inside of that orange is poison, right? So you would never be able to actually tell. But man, this is so freaky. It's so freaky. So I love this guy, 5149 James Lee. He does a lot of stuff for Breaking Points. And this food industry is wild, and he is at the front lines of breaking this shit open. And it is very impressive. Check this out, everybody. This is so crazy to me.
Big Food just found a way to hack Ozempic, and they're doing it in secret. The story is actually crazy. Okay, so there's a food laboratory in Northern California called Matson that is, quote unquote, creating the future of food. It's run by this guy named Justin Shimmick, PhD. So he is a smart guy, and he has monetized his intelligence quite well. It says for nearly 50 years, Matson has conceptualized, developed, branded, and scaled hundreds of product lines, and in the process created billions of dollars in revenue for clients. And right now, their clients, Big Food, is asking them to do experiments that will reformulate ingredients so that their food can bypass the effects of Ozempic, Wegovy, and other GLP-1 weight loss drugs. Because from a financial perspective, people on these weight loss drugs are buying less food.
Yep.
Walmart CEO John Furnard recently told Bloomberg News that the company is seeing signs that people taking GLP-1 agonist appetite suppressant medications are buying, quote, less units slightly less calories, which equals less profit.
Yep.
New York Times has reported that sales are down in sweet baked goods and snacks, and the industry is weathering a downturn. That's a big problem for these food executives. So in response, the food companies are designing what they call GLP-1 optimized products. In layman's terms, they're trying to make the food more addictive, even more addictive than they already are, because we know that food is already pretty addictive. Quote, there is little the industry hasn't tried to keep health-conscious consumers eating. Companies conceal clouds of nostalgic aromas into packaging to trigger Proustian reverie. When they discovered that noisier chips induced people to eat more of them, snack engineers turned up the crunch. Food technologists found a way to amplify the intensity of artificial sweeteners to hundreds of times beyond sugar's natural flavor. The structure of salt crystals can be altered to accelerate the speed at which they absorb into the chemical pathways that signal saltiness, allowing the brain to perceive the flavor more intensely. In the chemosensory world, referring to the science of how chemicals provoke sensations, almost anything is possible. Yeah, I suppose almost anything is possible, but I think the certainty here is that we're going to be left with a bunch of people who are still obese, taking drugs with, pretty bad side effects that no longer work.
Right.
That, I would say, is not ideal. And worse yet, it's all being done in secret, okay? When asked, Justin Shimmick wouldn't say which companies he was working with to develop these GLP-1 products, saying, quote, we are professional secret keepers. These people are sick.
This is what I'm talking about. The GLP-1 that this Ozempic is producing 100% of, and it's absolutely unhealthy for you. You should not be producing 100% of GLP-1. You should not be producing 100% of your serotonin. You should not be producing 100% of anything. That's not how the human body works. When you're producing 100% of something that's not supposed to be producing 100% of it, it hurts you. In the long run, it hurts you. And now they want to make foods that bypass that. This is an absolute recipe for destruction of the human body. They're going to pump you up, make 100% of something in your body, and then they're going to make something that bypasses that. So now you're producing something you shouldn't be producing 100% of, and you're still going to be eating the shit food. We are all fucked. We're all fucked, everybody. This is crazy. And if you're not paying attention to this, you could be subjected to some real physical pain. Death. What the fuck kind of world are we living in, everybody? This is wacky. It's absolutely insane. The drugs are not helping. And when they do help, they find a way to make them not help again. This is all they care about, is their bottom line in their pocket. They don't give a shit about your health. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you do not have a reason to be taking a blood thinner or a reason to be producing GLP-1, you need to stop taking this shit and go back to the way things need to be done. Real exercise, being mindful of what you're putting in your body, and actually being physical and doing something, and stop relying on these fucking drugs to do the work for you, you lazy pieces of shit. Seriously, you're nothing more than a lazy person at this point. You need to do better. And if exercise is something you just can't get on board with, well, then maybe you deserve to be fucking fat at the end of the day. Maybe you deserve where you are. Maybe you need to accept what you've done to yourself and stop relying on bullshit medications to get you out of the place that you put yourself in. This is wild, everybody. So it's just a lose-lose situation for everybody not paying attention out there. So how many minimum wage hours are needed to afford an apartment in New England? I will tell you right now, way too many.
Report shows just how hard it is for minimum wage workers to afford housing, and the news is particularly bad for one state here in New England. A Redfin report says workers would have to put in 106 hours per week to afford a median-priced apartment. However, the worst state studied was New Hampshire. You would have to work 224 hours a week. That is because of higher rent prices and a minimum wage of $7.25. Technically, that's more hours than there are in a week. It's literally impossible to do. Massachusetts is at 135 hours a week. And if you want the lowest in New England, it is Maine with only 105.
Fuck
We
that.
should note, though, Vermont didn't have enough data to make the list. A Redfin economist said the staggering stat is meant to shine a light on the vast affordability gap here in the U.S.
Dude, that is just wrong. It's just wrong. How are we capable of saying these things? 224 hours you have to work a week to afford an apartment in New Hampshire? What the fuck? What do you mean? It's impossible. You just heard her. It's impossible. There's not enough hours in a week to do it. This is where we're at today. So we can't afford anything, right? Everybody who wants to be able to do anything won't sacrifice anything to better themselves. And now we've got protocols in place to keep people fat and unhealthy. Look, this is just a constant story of suppressing us all, of taking everything that makes us happy away. And it drives everybody to this point of, I need pills to make my life better. This is all by design, everybody. It's all by design. They are not doing anything to better us, to make us healthier. They're doing everything in their power to keep us sick and to keep you right where you are, which is underneath their thumb. This whole podcast has been nothing about, it's been all about your health today. So get healthier, people, without their help. You need to do your own, I hate saying it, but you need to do your own research. You need to look at everything that you're consuming and everything that you're doing today with a fine-tooth comb, with a magnifying glass. Because the way that they have it designed right now is for all of us to fail. And it's really, really troubling to me. It's absolutely insane and unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. This is crazy to even be talking about today. With all of our technology and all the things that are going on. So now we need to follow the gold, everybody. Yeah, have you heard about this? Following the gold. This is what happens when you follow the gold. For decades, Fort Knox has been shrouded in secrecy with no full audit since 1953, and endless whispers of missing gold in America's gold reserve still there, or has it been quietly siphoned away into the hands of the global elites? I don't know, but this is crazy, and if this is true, I need to get my hands on more fucking gold. Seriously.
Like some mystery movie or Goldfinger, James Bond, this is really going on. This is wild. This is historic.
Starts with gold, and I've been following the COMEX. There's something going on with gold, and nobody really knows what it is. Somebody here in the United States is buying a crap load of gold. Somebody is taking huge physical deliveries, and it's causing shortages in London, where they buy and sell gold. There's shortages now of gold because somebody is buying it and shipping it here. Somebody with very deep pockets. Okay, so why? Now this is all theory. That's fact. Here's the theory of what's going on. They're preparing for a full-on gold audit. We talked about this yesterday. The government right now claims on its balance sheet as an asset all of this gold, and it's valued at $45 an ounce. In case you haven't heard, it's $2,900 an ounce. So they're talking now about boosting the price of gold, at least market to market, but maybe even making it $5,000 an ounce, okay?
Oh, I hope so.
If that happens, the balance sheet starts to fall into line and our debt to GDP is not as bad as it really is.
So they're gonna up the price of gold to shift the balance of our debt, which is not the way that it should be done. It's not going to help anything, but I will tell you that if you're not buying gold right now, you're crazy. You got to buy it. You got to look into it before these prices go up and grab whatever you can. Because if it goes up that high, man, this is going to be, it's better than crypto. At least it's something that you can hold in your hand. And I mean, I'm not going to say that I have a bunch of gold, but it's not something that I wasn't already acquiring over the last 10 years when I first heard about all of this going on and where we were going financially with the gold and where it was going to be today. And it's all coming true. This is not a made-up story. This is not something that is new news. We've been talking about gold going up and changing the GDP for the last decade. And I have friends that have definitely told me over and over again to buy more gold. Buy it as many times as you can. Get it as cheap as you can, because one day it's going to flip. It's going to flip, and it's happening right now. Could you imagine if it was $5,000 an ounce? Well, fucking hallelujah, because crypto ain't doing shit for me. So, holy shit. When I heard this, I was like, oh my God, my paranoid friends are not so paranoid anymore. Are they? Right? It's not just a theory. And that's the problem with these theories, is that there's a lot of truth to them. And I know you want to throw your hands up and be like, this guy's a fucking moron. I can't believe I'm even listening to this BS. Look, everybody. Look at the list of theories to the list of lies. See who's been more right. It's crazy. There is truth out there if you're willing to look through it and decipher for yourself. But man, am I glad I listened to my conspiracy theory friends, because at least when the shit pops off, I got something to play with. This is crazy, dude. Like, when do we get to the point where it's not a theory anymore, right? Even when it's proven 100% true, assholes like you out there go, no, it's all false. It's fake. You're a conspiracy theorist. Really? Am I? I don't think so. Never have been. But this was taken away from the history books, and I found this to be really, really interesting, because if this is true, George Washington was bulletproof? What?
From the history books.
It was the story about George Washington.
The bulletproof president?
Yeah.
You know, George Washington was a courier for General Braddock, one of the English generals during the French and Indian War. All of the couriers were killed, and Washington had 2 horses shot from beneath him, and he had 4 bullet holes in his jacket, but no flesh wounds. He had bullet fragments in his hair, no flesh wounds. Many years later, he still hadn't become president yet, but he was back in the area, and one of the Indian chiefs who had been involved was elderly at that point, near death. He said to his braves, "Take me to see this man. I must see him before I die." And when they brought him in the presence of Washington, he said, "Sir, I'm an expert marksman, and I shot you 17 times. And my men shot you, and pretty soon I told them to stop wasting their bullets. And I just wanted to meet the man who was protected by the great presence above." Wow. That story used to be in all of our history books until it became politically incorrect.
Why was it politically incorrect?
God.
You want to tell me that God is real? You want to tell me that we changed something in our history books because God was involved, and we're not supposed to have anything between God and state? I don't think the separation is what we need. I'm starting to think that what we need is to understand more of what's going on here. But was this really in our history books? because I don't even think you'll be able to find it. If they suppress this story enough and kept it from us because he was protected by God, and we can't have God in our state linked, then isn't this, I mean, shouldn't we know this? Wouldn't this help more people understand that it could be real? So maybe in some weird way, God is real and protected George Washington. I don't know. I have a hard time. Religion really bothers me, and I think everybody knows that now. But at the end of the day, man, that's pretty unexplainable. And if it really was in the history books, why would we take it out? Right? Don't we want to know this about our presidents? You know, shouldn't we? That's the whole thing that bothers me with history books and, documenting our past, is that the people that don't want specific information to get out don't allow it to get out because of their own beliefs. So if we suppress something like this from our history books, what else have we suppressed, right? So last thing I got for everybody is this right here, and this is SNL. It's Shane Gillis, and I just found this to be really funny, and I thought it would be a great way to kind of bring this to a close. But let's check this out.
A couple of beers is a clinically proven treatment for conditions like boredom, depression, winter, museum, hangovers, affair, and moderate to severe Italian wife. And if you miss a dose a couple of beers, don't worry. You won't. Brother, you will never miss a dose. It's kind of thing, the only thing you really remember after a while is to take it. The most common side effect of a couple of beers is drowsiness. So you may want to ask your doctor about a little bump. The way a little bump works is simple. Once the drowsiness of a couple beers sets in, you simply take a little bump and let the medication do its thing.
Come on, back behind. Try to teach my kid how to swing.
So if you're ready to get your life back, talk to your doctor about a couple of beers. Maybe even a little bump.
Honey, can you come sit down? We need to talk.
No. Shit, man. That's funny. That's funny, everybody. Look, at the end of the day, I don't agree with the message, obviously. I don't. I wouldn't have a couple of beers today. It could ruin my life. But at the end of the day, man, that's funny as shit. It's so funny. Just a couple of beers and a bump. It's great for everything, right? Boredom, museums, annoying wives. But I love Shane Gillis. Looking forward to Tires 2, or Tires the second season. But at the end of the day, man, keeping everything moving forward. I love the YUKA app now, and it's going to help me even dial my diet in more than before. With everything that I talked about on this podcast today, it is for entertainment purposes only. Again, thank you, Miguela. Thank you, Elijah. And thank you, Hugh, for all of the videos that you send. Keep them coming. And, of course, everybody out there, thank you for subscribing. You're what's keeping me coming back week after week. Remember to subscribe, all right? And talkinwithtopher@gmail.com. Send an audio, video, or type it out, but send your stories or requests to be a guest. And don't forget about the Linktree link. It's in the description below the video, along with all of the links that I talked about today, so that you can look into it yourself and do your own research. And I just wish everybody out there a healthier, happier life. It is hard work. You got to put it in, and it's so rewarding when you do. But I do hope that you have an amazing Thursday. I hope you enjoy your weekend. And as always, I will talk to you later.